Galactic Empire said Baba Yaga feared war until he ruthlessly dragged their king through the streets. At the outer edge of the Orion Arm, where the shimmering nebulates mark the boundary between known space and the abyss, there is a name no one dares to speak too loudly. Baba Yaga. Not a legend, not a ghost, but a man forged in blood and vengeance. He did not rule an empire. He had no council. But every time his name was spoken, the stars trembled. They said Baba Yaga was a phantom wandering in the shadows, hunting fools brave enough to provoke him. But to the Galactic Empire of Virex, he was nothing more than a bedtime story. A deadly mistake. High Chancellor Tiberian, the supreme ruler of the Virex Empire, laughed when he heard that Baba Yaga controlled Sector 9. A space pirate? A foolish myth? He will kneel like all the others. They thought Baba Yaga feared war. But they were wrong. When the war began, on the first day, the Empire's vanguard entered Baba Yaga's territory. No response, no warships, no defenses. On the third day, 3 of Baba Yaga's colonies fell. Not a single shot was fired in return. Chancellor Tiberian mocked. He has fled, a phantom who only hides in the dark. But on the 7th day, an eerie silence fell over the Empire's communications. Every channel went dark. The main fleet at the border vanished from the scanners. Outer Rim fortresses burned to ash within hours, and then a message echoed across the entire empire. You wanted war. Now you'll drown in it. The Galactic Empire of Virex was the greatest war machine the galaxy had ever witnessed. For 2 centuries, they expanded relentlessly, turning resource-rich planets into colonies and crushing every rebellion with the destructive power of their supreme fleet. No force dared to challenge their authority until they encountered Baba Yaga. That name was a whispered warning in the dark. No one knew exactly who he was or where he came from. To those living on the galaxy's outer rim, Baba Yaga was a legend, a vengeful specter, a hunter of tyrannical empires. But to Grand Chancellor Tiberian, the ruler of the Virex Empire, he was nothing more than a ridiculous fairy tale. The first official mention of Baba Yaga appeared after the Red Moon Massacre. An imperial mining colony was wiped out in a single night. Not a single soul survived. Surveillance satellites recorded the final moments, a black warship emerging from hyperspace, followed by a brilliant white light that consumed the entire surface. Tiberian didn't care. To him, it was nothing but the work of a reckless pirate, daring to damage the Empire's property. Someone like that wouldn't survive for long. When border governors reported increasing Baba Yaga activity in Sector 9, Tiberian scoffed. Just a few scattered insurgents, he said, his cold eyes scanning the holographic star map. A drifter lurking in the shadows can't shake the foundation of my empire. Confident in his overwhelming military might, Tiberian ordered the 7th Fleet to advance into Sector 9. This was a force of annihilation. Hundreds of warships equipped with cutting-edge weaponry, capable of reducing entire planets to rubble. He didn't just want to destroy Baba Yaga, he wanted to make him an example to anyone who dared oppose the Empire. On the first day, the Vanguard fleet landed on 3 colonies. There was no resistance, no sign of Baba Yaga. All they found was empty space. Admirals reported that everything was proceeding smoothly, almost too easily. By the 3rd day, 12 planets in Sector 9 were under complete Imperial control. Baba Yaga had not shown himself. Not a single battle had been fought. To Tiberian, this only confirmed that all the rumors were meaningless. On the 7th day, the 7th Fleet vanished. No distress signals, no debris. The massive ships that once dominated battlefields had become an eerie silence. Enraged, Tiberian summoned the Supreme Fleet, the most powerful force in the Empire, and ordered them to enter Sector 9 to uncover the truth. But as the first ships jumped to hyperspace, a strange signal suddenly echoed across every communication channel. A cold, rasping voice, heavy with death. You wanted war. Now prepare to drown in it. Within seconds, the entire border defense system collapsed. Surveillance satellites were destroyed, fuel stations erupted in fiery explosions, and on the horizon, where the shadow of deep space stretched endlessly, Baba Yaga's black warships began to emerge. It was at that moment Tiberian realized. He had awakened a nightmare. The Galactic Empire said Baba Yaga feared war until he ruthlessly dragged their king through the streets. On the outer edge of the Orion Arm, where the nebula gate shimmers, marking the boundary between known space and the abyss, there is a name that strikes terror into empires: Baba Yaga. Not a myth, not a ghost, but a man forged from blood and vengeance. The Galactic Empire of Virex once believed Baba Yaga was nothing more than a fabricated tale. To Grand Chancellor Tiberion, the supreme ruler of the empire, he was just a petty space pirate. How could a drifter lurking in the shadows threaten the greatest empire that had conquered thousands of worlds? But he was wrong. It all began with the Red Moon Massacre. An imperial mining colony where millions of workers toiled was wiped out in a single night. No warnings, no distress signals. When the patrol fleet arrived, all that remained was a field of cold ashes and a message etched deep into the surface: blood debts will be paid in blood. Tiberion was enraged. He dismissed it as an attack by local insurgents. To crush any threat, he ordered the deployment of the 7th Fleet, an elite force armed with massive warships, to enter Sector 9, where Baba Yaga was rumored to be hiding. On the first day, they captured 3 planets without encountering any resistance. By the third day, 12 star systems fell under Imperial control. Baba Yaga never appeared. On the 7th day, the 7th Fleet vanished. No distress calls, no floating wreckage. The fleet that once symbolized Imperial might simply cease to exist. Tiberion refused to retreat. He mobilized the Supreme Fleet, the Empire's most powerful force, and ordered them to push deeper into Sector 9 to find Baba Yaga. It was only when the first ships jumped to hyperspace that he realized he had made a fatal mistake. All communication channels suddenly fell into static before a cold, deathly voice echoed across every Imperial ship and planet. You want war? You will drown in it. Within moments, the Empire's most fortified defenses collapsed. Fuel stations exploded. Surveillance satellites were obliterated. The planets forming the first line of defense burned and broke apart into drifting debris. And from the endless darkness of deep space, Baba Yaga's fleet emerged. They carried no banners, broadcast no signals. Their black warships glided through the void like specters, striking with lethal precision. Each Imperial ship was destroyed in minutes. No one understood how or even why. Admiral Krenvos, a seasoned warrior, sent a final message before his flagship was torn to pieces. We have awakened a nightmare. 7 days later, Baba Yaga walked into the capital city of Virexia Prime. No one knew how he breached the energy shields, but as dawn broke, the people witnessed a horrifying scene: Grand Chancellor Tiberion being dragged through the streets. He was still alive when the procession began. But as hours passed, his blood stained the white stone avenues of the city. No one dared to interfere. At midday, Baba Yaga stood in the central square, raising Tiberion's severed head, a declaration that the galaxy's most powerful empire had fallen. In a low, chilling voice, he left a final message: no throne is safe from me. And then, like a shadow, he disappeared. Within a year, the Galactic Empire of Virex, which had ruled for over 2 centuries, collapsed entirely. From that day forward, every ambitious ruler across the galaxy whispered the same warning: never let Baba Yaga set his sights on you. In the aftermath of the Empire's fall, the galaxy descended into chaos. Without the iron grip of Virex, once loyal systems splintered into warring factions, while criminal syndicates and mercenaries seized the void left behind. Yet, amid the anarchy, one question echoed through every star system: who, what, was Baba Yaga? Legends spread like wildfire. Some claimed he was the ghost of a forgotten warlord, seeking vengeance on those who had betrayed him. Others whispered that he was not human at all, that he had struck a pact with the abyss itself, gaining powers no mortal should possess. But those who had truly encountered him knew the most terrifying truth of all: Baba Yaga was real. A year after the fall of Virex, strange phenomena began to plague the galaxy's outer rim. Entire mining colonies vanished overnight, leaving behind only the sound of static on their last transmissions. Merchants reported seeing black ships gliding through the void, ships that left no energy signatures and could not be tracked by any known technology. In the forgotten sectors beyond the Nebula Gate, ghost stations, once abandoned outposts, began broadcasting eerie, coded messages. Scholars who decrypted these signals uncovered chilling warnings: the Shadow Watches. One such scholar, Dr. Alara Voss, daughter of the last admiral, had dedicated her life to unraveling the mystery. In the ruins of Virexia Prime, she discovered records sealed even from the highest ranks of the Empire, fragments of a Black Ops project known only as Project Revenant. The documents hinted at an experiment to create the ultimate weapon, a being forged from human will and alien technology, capable of bending reality itself. But the records ended abruptly, with one final cryptic phrase: he walks beyond the veil. Alara's investigation led her to Kordath 7, a dead world on the edge of known space. There, in the skeletal remains of a secret Imperial research base, she uncovered something that defied all logic: an empty stasis pod, still humming with power. Scrawled on the walls in dried blood were four chilling words: I remember your face. Before Alara could escape, her ship's systems went offline. In the cold silence, a shadow fell across her cockpit, a black warship, its edges shimmering like a mirage. As her breath quickened, a voice, low and merciless, echoed through her comms. You search for ghosts, child, but ghosts search for you. When she awoke, she was drifting in space, her vessel unharmed, but her memory fractured. Yet, in her trembling hands, she clutched an object she had not taken, a black coin, marked with an unfamiliar symbol, a broken crown. Word of her survival spread quickly, and with it, a darker fear. Baba Yaga was no longer merely a legend. He was hunting something, or someone. And as the fragments of Project Revenant resurfaced, the galaxy trembled at the possibility that Baba Yaga was only the beginning. In the shadows of forgotten worlds, something else was waking. And no empire, no king would be safe. Months passed, but the galaxy found no peace. The shattered remains of the Virex Empire fought over the ruins like vultures, yet even the most ruthless warlords feared the name Baba Yaga. His black warships appeared without warning, striking with cold precision. No bribe, no plea for mercy could halt his advance. But then, the disappearances began. Not just colonies or fleets. People, high-ranking officials, former imperial governors, and anyone connected to Project Revenant began to vanish. One by one, they disappeared without a trace, their last known locations marked by the same eerie symbol, a broken crown carved into metal and stone. At the heart of these mysteries, Dr. Alara Vos refused to stop her search. The black coin she had found haunted her, a message, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. And so, with a crew of outcasts and truth seekers, she followed the faint echoes of Baba Yaga's path toward the abyssal expanse, a region of space where no star burned and no ship returned. In the deepest void, they found the Silent Forge, an ancient, derelict station drifting at the edge of reality itself. It predated the Virex Empire by millennia. Its halls were cold, filled with strange glyphs that seemed to hum with a power no human mind could fully comprehend. At the heart of the forge, they found a chamber still active, its machinery pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat. And there, encased in a field of black energy, was a figure. Tall, silent, armor fused with organic matter, as though man and machine had become one. His face was obscured by a dark mask, but Alara knew. But something was wrong. The machinery around him was not keeping him alive. It was holding him prisoner. Before she could act, the chamber trembled. A voice, deep, resonant, filled the air. He is not the first. From the shadows emerged figures unlike anything Alara had ever seen. The Harrowed, remnants of a forgotten race that once ruled the abyss. Their forms were twisted, broken by ancient experiments to transcend mortality, and they recognized Baba Yaga for what he truly was, a failed prototype. You are too late, child, one of them rasped. We have awakened the others. The forge began to collapse. Alara had no choice. She severed the energy bindings holding Baba Yaga, freeing him from his prison. For a moment, the galaxy's greatest nightmare stood still. Before his eyes, burning with cold fire, met hers. They think they know fear, he whispered, his voice like distant thunder. I will show them the truth. As the forge imploded, Alara and her crew barely escaped, their ship torn from the abyssal expanse. But when they returned to real space, they realized the horror had only begun. Across the galaxy, other black ships had begun to stir, ancient weapons buried deep beneath the ruins of empires long forgotten. Baba Yaga had been a warning, but now, the true harbingers were coming. And no one, not even him, could stop them. 3 months later, the galaxy trembled. The black ships, once thought to be Baba Yagas alone, had multiplied. From the burned out husks of dead worlds and the drifting tombs of forgotten fleets, the Harrowed had risen. Each ship bore no identification, no call sign, only the mark of the broken crown, a reminder that the empire which once ruled them had fallen. But their purpose was far more terrifying. Entire planets were not simply destroyed, they were harvested. Populations vanished without a sound, their cities left intact, but eerily abandoned. Something ancient was moving beneath the surface of reality, and Baba Yaga was no longer the only shadow stalking the stars. Yet, in the heart of this rising storm, he had vanished. No one knew where Baba Yaga had gone after the Silent Forge's collapse. Rumors spread across the broken sectors. Some claimed he had returned to the abyss to finish what had begun. Others whispered that he was hunting something, or someone. Only Dr. Alara Voss knew the truth. He had left her a message, encoded into the black coin that still burned cold against her skin. 4 words, written in a language no living scholar could fully translate. The first key awaits. It led her and her crew to Iskander 9, a forgotten world lost in the gravity well of a dying star. The surface was nothing but jagged ruins, the remnants of a civilization that predated humanity by at least 1,000,000 years. Yet, hidden deep beneath the crust, they found a vault, sealed by technology far beyond anything the Virex Empire had ever known. Inside, Alara discovered a machine, a construct of shifting metal and dark glass, pulsing with a light that seemed to stretch across dimensions. At its center, an impossible artifact floated, a shard of black crystal, humming with a frequency that sent shivers down her spine. The moment she touched it, the galaxy itself seemed to shudder. Her mind was filled with visions, a war beyond time, where beings wrapped in shadow tore across the stars. And at the heart of it, a towering figure bound in chains of light, a being the Harrowed had feared. Not Baba Yaga. Something older. Something worse. As Alara gasped for breath, a familiar voice echoed through the vault, cold, relentless. You found the first key. Now you bring their gaze. Baba Yaga emerged from the shadows, his black armor glinting in the dim light. But something had changed. His presence was heavier, his aura darker. Whatever he had faced beyond the abyss had left a mark on him. They're waking up, she whispered, holding out the shard. We have to stop them. He shook his head slowly. You still don't understand. His voice was like distant thunder. This is not about stopping them. His gloved hand closed over the shard, and the air grew heavy, filled with the taste of cold iron. It's about keeping them from remembering what I am. In the far reaches of the galaxy, as if answering his words, a new signal pulsed to life, an ancient beacon long dormant. Across 1,000 worlds, the Harrowed turned their gaze toward it. The beacon carried a single, chilling message. The final key has awakened. And deep within the void, something even Baba Yaga had feared began to stir. 3 weeks after the final key awakened, the galaxy was no longer the same. The Harrowed no longer moved in shadows. They struck openly, tearing through the remnants of Imperial fleets and independent systems alike. Their ships, blacker than the void, moved with a precision no human mind could comprehend. Entire sectors fell silent. But it was not conquest they sought. It was the keys, artifacts from an age before recorded history. Each key held a fragment of something far more dangerous. The lock, an ancient prison where something older than the Harrowed had been bound. And now, that prison was beginning to weaken. In the middle of the chaos, Baba Yaga hunted. He had become more than a myth. He was a force of reckoning. The broken factions of the old Virex Empire feared him more than the Harrowed. Where the black mark of the broken crown appeared, the galaxy knew death followed. But Baba Yaga's true mission remained hidden. He was searching for the second key, and the only person who could unlock its secrets was Dr. Alara Voss. On the drifting colony world of Severus 12, Alara and her crew raced against time. The visions from the first key haunted her, flashes of a being trapped beneath endless stars, bound by chains of light. Every clue pointed to Severus 12, a world long abandoned after a mysterious temporal fracture had torn through its core. Inside the colony's ruins, Alara found what she was looking for, an ancient obelisk etched with markings that pulsed with an otherworldly glow. As she activated the obelisk, the air around her seemed to bend, the laws of physics unraveling. Then the shadows shifted. A black figure stepped through the broken doorway. Baba Yaga. His presence made the air grow cold, but Alara no longer feared him. She had seen the truth. Whatever he had become, he was the galaxy's only hope. "You're late," she said, her fingers trembling as she held the glowing fragment. His voice was low and unyielding. "The second key isn't here." Before she could respond, the lights flickered. A cold hum filled the ruins, a sound she recognized immediately. The Harrowed were coming. "They followed us," she whispered. Baba Yaga's hand moved to the hilt of the void blade on his hip, a weapon crafted from the same black crystal as the keys. They always do. The walls cracked as a rift tore open. The Harrowed emerged, their hollow faces flickering with unnatural light. But these were not mere foot soldiers. Leading them was a figure wrapped in flowing black armor, the Warden, one of the last enforcers of the lock. "You cannot stop the awakening," the Warden's voice echoed, layered with 1,000 whispers. "The third key is already within our grasp." Without warning, Baba Yaga moved. In a flash of shadow and steel, he was among them, his void blade cutting through the Harrowed like smoke. But the Warden was no ordinary foe. With a gesture, it bent space itself, hurling Baba Yaga across the ruins. "Alara, the obelisk!" Baba Yaga's voice cut through the chaos. She didn't hesitate. Pressing her hand against the ancient structure, she poured energy from the first key into it. The obelisk trembled, and in a burst of light, a second shard emerged, humming with the same dark power. But as she seized the second key, something far worse stirred beneath Severus 12. A new voice, cold and infinite, filled the air. "I remember this place." The ground split open. From the depths of the planet, a hand, vast and skeletal, began to rise. This was not the Harrowed. This was something older. Baba Yaga's mask tilted toward the abyss, his voice grim. "They're waking up faster than I thought." Alara turned to him, fear gripping her chest. "What happens if they unlock the prison?" He met her gaze, and for the first time, she saw something like hesitation behind his mask. "If they open the lock," he said quietly, "nothing will stop what comes next." As the ruins collapsed, Baba Yaga seized the second key from Alara's trembling hands. Without another word, he activated a rift jump, pulling them both out of Severus 12 just as the ancient horror began to break free. But as the galaxy trembled, far beyond known space, a third beacon began to pulse, a signal that had not been heard for 10,000 years. And with it, the true masters of the abyss began to stir. 2 days after the Severus 12 escape, the galaxy shifted again. Across 100 systems, strange anomalies rippled through space. Time fractures, gravity distortions, and whispers that echoed through ship communication channels. Explorers who ventured too close to these disturbances returned, changed, their eyes black as void, their minds broken by visions of something waiting beyond the stars. At the heart of the chaos, Baba Yaga and Dr. Dao Alara Vos pressed forward. The first and second keys pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, a sign that the lock, the prison binding an ancient horror, was unraveling. But there was no time to hesitate. The third key had already been awakened, and it was calling them. They arrived at Duskfall Station, a derelict outpost orbiting a dying star. Its lights flickered weakly against the blackness, and sensor readings showed no life signs, but something was there. Something wrong. Whatever did this, Alara whispered, staring at the station's burned hull, wasn't human. Baba Yaga said nothing. He stood at the viewport, his black armor reflecting the dim light. But inside his mind, the hum of the keys was deafening, a voice calling out to him, distant yet familiar. For the first time in years, he felt uncertainty. They docked. The air inside was thick and cold, heavy with the scent of burnt metal and something older, a presence that seemed to watch them from the shadows. Alara's breath quickened as she scanned the walls. Etched into the metal were symbols she had only seen once before, the same glyphs as the Silent Forge. "They were here," she murmured, "the Harrowed, and something else." Baba Yaga moved ahead, his void blade shimmering faintly in his hand. With each step, the temperature dropped. And then, they found it, the chamber. At its center floated a black sphere, swirling with dark energy, the third key. But it was not alone. Around it stood 3 figures, the Harrowed, their forms taller, sharper, more twisted than any they had faced before, and behind them, a throne, carved from obsidian, draped in the bones of long-forgotten kings. As they entered, one of the figures turned, a being of pure malice, its hollow face framed by a jagged crown. Its voice, when it spoke, felt like ice crawling beneath the skin. "He has come at last," it said. "The lost one." Baba Yaga stepped forward. "I was never lost," he growled, lifting his blade. "I was waiting." Without another word, he attacked. The chamber erupted into chaos. Baba Yaga's blade clashed against theirs, every strike unleashing shocks of black lightning. The air trembled under the weight of ancient powers, but the Herod were stronger, faster, no longer bound by mortal limits. "Elara, take the key." Baba Yaga's voice was fierce but strained. Even he could feel it. Something else was here, something watching from the edge of reality. She didn't hesitate. Sprinting toward the sphere, she reached out, but the moment her fingers brushed its surface, visions flooded her mind. She saw the past, a war of titans, where gods in armor of starlight clashed with creatures from the void. She saw the lock being forged, a prison built not to contain a weapon, but a king. And worst of all, she saw what came after. The lock wasn't designed to last forever. If it failed, the being it held wouldn't merely destroy worlds, it would unmake existence itself. "Alara." Baba Yaga's voice pulled her back. Blood streaked his armor, and his breath came heavy. "Now!" With a final burst of will, she tore the third key from its bindings. The chamber shuddered, the black sphere imploding in a blaze of shadow. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Until the throne began to hum. A voice deeper and older than the stars filled the air, resonating through their bones. "Three keys have turned." A jagged tear ripped through the chamber, revealing a void beyond space, and from it something moved. Baba Yaga froze. For all his power, for all his rage, this presence made even him hesitate. "It's him," Alara whispered, trembling. "The one the lock was built to hold." Baba Yaga's voice dropped to a cold whisper. "No, not yet." He reached for her hand, the keys burning in their palms. "We finish this." And with a final twist of power, he pulled them both back through the rift, just as the throne cracked open, and the king in the abyss began to wake. The galaxy trembles on the edge of oblivion. With three keys unlocked, the ancient prison weakens, its chains cracking as the king in the abyss stirs from his eternal slumber. If he awakens, entire civilizations will burn, and the fabric of reality itself may collapse. But the fight is far from over. Baba Yaga and Dr. Alara Vos hold the galaxy's final hope. Somewhere in the forgotten reaches of space lies the fourth key, the only thing capable of sealing the lock forever. Yet, with each passing moment, the Herod grow bolder, and something far darker moves in the shadows. What happens if the fourth key falls into the wrong hands? The battle lines are drawn. Across shattered star systems and haunted voids, Baba Yaga hunts, but even he knows there are powers he cannot face alone. Ancient forces awaken, forgotten secrets rise, and the final war is coming. And when the lock breaks, no one will be safe. But you, yes, you, can be part of this journey. If you want to uncover the truth behind the King in the Abyss, witness the next chapter of Baba Yaga's relentless war and dive deeper into this epic, mysterious universe. Don't miss out. Subscribe now to stay on the front lines as the secrets of the Abyss are revealed. Like this video if you want more thrilling stories full of suspense, ancient powers, and dark mysteries. Share this story with your friends because some secrets are too big to keep to yourself. Every key turned brings us closer to the final reckoning. Will Baba Yaga stop the rise of the king, or will the galaxy fall? The only way to find out is to stay with us, because the darkness is just beginning.